Hello YouTube. This is Mahadeva, the OG Thunder Wizard. Alright, I want to talk to you just generally about shamanism and what I would define as a modern shaman. There's no shortage of spiritual paths, religions, practices, beliefs. There is a smorgasbord of things available for you to choose from. On one end, you can go the hardcore religious way. On the other end, you can go the hardcore New Age way, whatever way works for you. I personally don't have an issue what somebody does or what somebody believes. Obviously, I'm going to have feelings about different paths. I think some are more healing than others. I certainly have my own preference. But I've been watching some videos about health and medicine, and been really enjoying some of the discussions from actual doctors, like doctors with medical degrees, and talking about functional medicine, which, based on what I'm listening to, sounds like kind of a merging between alternative medicine, quote unquote, and traditional medicine. So it's sounding like a lot like practical medical advice that is operating from critical thinking. Anyway. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about health and healing and disease. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and I have my own personal experience with my own, healings from chronic pain. And I have my experience with watching people in my life, a few of whom have gotten some very serious illnesses, life-threatening illnesses. And I can't escape. Well, first off, being a good critical thinker, I have to acknowledge my own emotional agendas. And so let me just share with you my emotional agendas, which color a lot of my conclusions. And I'm being honest with you about that. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm right or wrong, because the first step to critical thinking is acknowledging that we are all human, we are all emotional, and we all have emotional agendas. We like things, we don't like things. There are things we want to believe and things we don't want to believe. And so no matter who you are, you have to be aware that there's at least some part of you that seeks to find proof for what you want to believe. I'm no different than anybody else. And in my personal world, I can't tolerate the thought of an unjust universe. So since I do believe that the universe is just, my experience with the universe is that it is just, it is fair, then we run into problems when we talk about problems in society, when we talk about poverty, when we talk about misery, when we talk about strife, war, and when we talk about illness, especially illnesses that seemingly come out of nowhere and attack innocent people. And so for me, that's a problem, because if I follow logical thinking, that means either that the universe is random and arbitrary, which is kind of worse than being unfair, or it's downright unfair, or there's something that we don't quite see. So I tend to operate from the assumption that the universe is fair, The universe is actually a loving place for all of us. And in my experience, whatever negativity we have in our life is our own creation. And the majority of people in the world are not aware of what they're creating in their lives. And so I extend this to illness. So when there's certain illnesses that pop up, or if there's people in my life who I see who get these, illnesses, and, being that I'm, almost 58, I've been around long enough now, this is what happens. People start getting old and they get sick and they die and things like that. So there's a lot more of that coming into my life experience. So when I see that, I can't help but want to figure out, okay, so what is the unconscious projection that is going on with this sick individual that has created this particular disease? And so I operate from the theory, the assumption that there's some unconscious conflict within them on a deep unconscious level, that if you understand what the nature of that conflict is, you will then, the disease itself will tell you, it will define what their spiritual conflict, their psychological conflict with themselves is. Now, that is a theory, and so far, it continues to prove itself out to be true for me. So what does this have to do with shamanism? So as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about how, as I'm listening to these medical professionals, these doctors with degrees in medicine, different kinds of medicine, they are taking a very practical, real life approach to what works and what doesn't. For instance, the disease of ALS, if you're familiar with that, motor neuron disease. Is it Lou Gehrig's disease? I don't remember who's what. Anyway, but it's a disease. It's a very horrible disease. Stephen Hawking suffered from this disease for, much longer than is supposed to happen. Because usually when somebody gets diagnosed with ALS, they have 5 years to live. And what happens is that the brain disconnects from all of the nerves. So they're unable to move, they're unable to speak, they're unable to do things like swallow, breathe. They start losing all motor neuron function, but their brain is fully active. So it's like, you've got all these nerves here, and the brain is here. It's like everything just disconnects from the brain. So the brain floats around in the head. The person has complete knowledge of what's going on. They can see everything, they experience everything, but they're incapable, at the end stages, they're incapable of communicating. They're incapable of having any voluntary and even involuntary muscle control over themselves. And then eventually their heart stops or their lungs stop working and they die. It's a horrible way to go. I wouldn't want to go that way. There's a family member who is suffering from that in my life. So because it's hit so close to home, I wonder, I know this person. I've known this person my whole life. Is there something about this person's life, the way that they've lived it, my experience of how they've interacted with life? And as it turns out, my feelings about this person for decades, about, what if they were to ask me, which of course, if somebody doesn't ask me, I don't give them advice. It's one of the reasons I tell you guys to ask me questions. I mean, just by coming onto my channel and coming onto the chat, by default, you're sort of you're creating that dynamic with me, because I'm here giving opinions and all that. So you're kind of doing that, but I much prefer that people ask. So people in my life, if they don't ask for my opinion, I don't give it. It's none of my business. You know, I watched my fiance die of cancer, and I didn't offer my opinions. I had a lot of opinions, but it wasn't my life, it was her life. And, you know, I wasn't in her skin, I wasn't walking in her shoes. I could only guess what she was going through. And, you know, I wanted to be the one person in her life that wasn't trying to, you know, dump all of this, you know, either telling her what to do or telling, please don't die. No, this is your life. I'm going to be your friend. I don't have any agendas on you. I'm just your friend. You know, I'm just your partner. And I'll walk with you as far as I can. How you choose to live your life, none of my business. So I don't impose my opinions on anybody, if they're a family member or whatever. So I've learned a lot of things that might be helpful, but I've also learned that when it comes to healing, sorry, I get distracted by the comments, especially when people ask questions that are totally unrelated to what I'm talking about. I forgot what I was saying. So, you get where I'm going with this. So what does this have to do with shamanism? By the way, those who are new to the channel, welcome to the channel. Here's how my chat works. This is a question and answer. You wait until I'm done with my lecture. You listen to the lecture because that's what I want to talk about. I'm happy to take other questions at times. Try to focus your questions on what this channel is about. When you have a question, then write the word question in all caps, just the word question in all caps so that I see it. And then write your question. Make sure you write a well thought out question. Bear in mind, I tend to be very cranky if people don't follow my rules. So you ask an honest question about what I'm talking about. Otherwise, you run the risk of me psychoanalyzing you and maybe saying things you don't want to hear. All right, so I'm just giving you fair warning ahead of time. I get annoyed, distracted, and offended when people start asking and saying things that aren't related to what I'm talking about, because it's rude. But it's not your fault, because YouTube has sort of has programmed you to be narcissistic and act that way. It's not your fault. But now you know. All right, so what does this have to do with shamanism? So let's talk about the definition of shamanism. Before we go any further, these links are here for a reason. So go check out these links. I've got more than enough stuff. I've got books, I've got other things that I'm not promoting at the moment, but they're out there. But the two things that I am promoting are the videos on thunderwizard.com, specifically the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. And also you can look at the Manifestation Mastery course. But if you subscribe at the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, you will also have access to the Manifestation Mastery course. This right here is the elite spiritual warrior practice, the most powerful energy practice on the planet in my experience. Check those out if you really want to get the most out of what it is that I'm talking about and what I'm teaching. So shamanism, let's talk about it. When you ask anybody on the street, what is shamanism, you're going to get different answers from everybody, because shamanism is not a defined word. People use it in whatever way they want. And a lot of the same ways people, use the word God in whatever way they want. There isn't a definition for it. So I'm giving you my definition of shamanism, and why do I identify as a shaman? What does that mean? So back in the 1700s, Christian missionaries went into Siberia. I don't know if it was Siberia or Mongolia, but basically the same thing. And they, of course, went there to convert whomever they could find. These were European Christians. And they came across indigenous Siberians who practiced what is called Tingarism. This is what we call it. Tengurism. Tengurism means the worship of the sky god Tengur, Sky Father. So Tengurists are animists. Animists is if you want to look it up, go ahead and look up animism. Go ahead and look that up so you know what we're talking about. So Tengurists were animists, which means that they believed that everything in existence, physical, non-physical, has a spirit that you can interact with, that you can communicate with. The trees, the rocks, the plants, the stars, ideas, animals, everything can be interacted with. You can communicate with everything. And so in the Tengurist religion, there are priests of that religion and priestesses, and those people are called shamans. So a shaman is a priest or a priestess of the Tengurist animist religion who acts as a mediator between the human realm and everything else. And one of their prime methods of communication with everything else is they use frame drums. And by the way, Native Americans are descended from these same general people. Native Americans come from we can trace back their genetics back to the Altai region, the Altai Mountains of Siberia. And that's where they came from. That's why Native Americans and Siberians have very similar looking religions, because even though they're separated by tens of thousands of years, we're talking about the same language. In fact, you can trace many Native American languages all the way back to modern Siberian indigenous languages. So these people use frame drums, and they beat on the drums to go into a trance-like state so that they can travel to the 3 worlds. There's actually 9 worlds. Even the Siberians know that there are 9 worlds, not just 3. But they travel to the 3 worlds to communicate with the spirit beings of whatever. And you can communicate to, you can go and find out what the sickness is that somebody has. You can find out if you're having problems with ants, for example. Let's say your house is, filled with ants. You can go and talk to the ant king, and you can communicate with them, and you can say, hey, I need you to leave my house. And the ant will say, hey, but it's raining and we need a place to stay. We'll leave as soon as we're done, or, whatever it is. And you can work with the spirits, you can work with the gods, you can work with the ancestors. So that is their main form of animism, was to use trance states in order to communicate with everything. And the whole point of animism is to maintain a dynamic balance with all of the worlds and the beings that exist in all different levels. So there's no such thing in shamanism of reaching enlightenment. There's no such thing as salvation, because that goes against the practical reality of that we live in this dynamic balance of multiple worlds, multiple dimensions, and multiple beings that live on all these different, and everybody has to cooperate and communicate. And so we're looking for dynamic balance. We're looking for harmony, and it never changes. Every day you have to achieve some state of balance. You have to do that with the weather if you live connected to whatever's around you. If you're living in nature, you are dependent upon the rain, the sun, the seasons, and so you have to live in dynamic balance with all of that. And this is shamanism. So shamanism is a word that was created by Westerners because these Tengrists, the priests who did this spiritual work, they were called shamans. And so they started using the word shamanism to describe any kind of animism. So then if they went to Africa and they saw animist priests, they would call them African shamans, Native American shamans. This is why Native Americans don't like being called shamans, because they have their own religion. They're not Tengrists. They have their own religion, even though the similarities are obvious. They have their own religion, and they don't like to. It's like if somebody's a Baptist, and just because you're a Christian, and somebody walks up and calls you a Catholic, you're going to get. I'm not a Catholic. I'm a Baptist. I'm not a Catholic. I'm a Lutheran. I'm not a Catholic. I'm Eastern Orthodox. Well, they're all Christians. For the rest of the world, it's all Christians. But for them, no, don't lump me in with those people. I'm an individual. So when you call Native Americans shamans, they get upset for a good reason. That's not their religion. But that word shaman has been that's where it came from. Now shaman means all kinds of different things. In the 80s, neo-shamanism was about following Michael Harner and learning how to use a drum to go to the three worlds, and etc., etc. Nowadays, people use the word shamanism to mean getting high on hallucinogens. And let's be clear, using hallucinogens is a very small percentage of some animist practitioners. But there are modern people who think that's what shamanism is. You're a shaman? I've run into people who have that, and I say, oh, I'm a shaman. And they say, oh, really? And then they'll start asking me, do I take acid or do I eat mushrooms? And I say, I don't do any hallucinogens. And they get a really weird look on their face, like, how can you call yourself a shaman? Because that's not what shamanism is. In fact, as a shamanic practitioner, I would say people who use those, for a lot of people, it's training wheels. When you want to grow up and you want to do some real shamanism, then you can drop all that, that forced, artificially created shamanic experience. But there's no shortage of people who are wrapped up in fantasy as well. And I'm going to, I'm not somebody who likes to go around bad-mouthing too many. I mean, I badmouth Christianity from here to eternity, but for the most part, I don't look to badmouth other religions. But I'm going to share with you an experience that shamanism, my point is that shamanism is a science. If it's a science, it means that we're dealing with practical truths. So there are objective truths. And any science is looking to have an interaction with objective reality. And if you're not doing that, you're either, learning or you're not doing your job well as a scientist. And this was a while back, but I liked the idea of Wicca. Sounded like a nice idea to me. On paper, it sounds good. I was well aware that it was a made-up path that whoever the guy's name was made it up in however long it was, 100 years ago or 200 years ago. And he mismashed a bunch of things together, trying to create his version of an authentic European tradition, which of course it's not. But on paper, it looked good. And I thought I would meet with a local Wiccan group. And it was pure nonsense. Just pure nonsense. There was, whatever it is that they did, there was no power to it. The people themselves, their lives were a mess. They smoked cigarettes, they drank, they were really sick. They had all kinds of chronic illnesses and chronic pain. They had just the typical things associated with people who drink and smoke. They had depression and they had drug addictions and they were just, what they would do is they would get together and they would just indulge in childish fantasies. and they would talk about dragons, and they would talk about, and I was waiting for them to show me their tradition. I was waiting for them to show me what they do, and nothing. They couldn't show me. I mean, the best they could do is that one woman, this woman was as old as I was. She was in her 40s at that time. And she was talking about, you have a dragon named George. And George wants you to, and it was like playing pretend with a 4-year-old. It was just nonsense. And this is what a lot of people, can't tell the difference between that kind of nonsense and this spiritual science, which we should call shamanism. Shamanic practitioners. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking that this is now starting to come around again in modern times with the actual scientists, physics, astronomers, and especially in the medical field. But there's a lot of nutcase lunatics out there. I just read today or yesterday, or I saw it on some news thing, that there are parts of Australia where I'm living right now that are going in intermittent lockdowns because COVID is starting to pop up, which it's going to. I mean, Australia has dodged a bullet for a pretty long time, but the fact of the matter is that COVID is going to come here, because at some point they're going to have to open their borders, and when that happens, COVID will come, and so who knows what's going to happen. But when we have these lockdowns, because they're very, to their credit, whenever it breaks out, because somebody will come in from overseas and somehow it'll escape, quarantine or something, and it'll get out into the community, and then, it pops up, and so we go into these sporadic lockdowns where they'll lock down for a few days, and then you have to wear a mask for a couple of weeks. And I personally have no problem doing that. Anybody who complains about that, I think you're just a giant pussy. Pull your big boy and big girl pants up and deal with it. It's just not that big of a deal. So I don't have a problem doing that if it's gonna, help save lives. I'm happy to do it. But there was a store. There was an organic restaurant or store and restaurant. And they weren't allowing anybody to come in with a mask. If you wanted to go in their store during lockdown, or during when they require people to wear masks, if you were wearing a mask, they wouldn't serve you. They also wouldn't allow anybody to come in who had been vaccinated, because there's all kinds of rumor and nonsense going around saying that if you stand next to somebody who's been vaccinated, that somehow it's going to affect your time of the month. If a woman stands next to somebody who's been vaccinated, according to this ridiculous rumor, that somehow it's going to mess with your menstrual cycle. I mean, it's just pure nonsense. And it's not validated by any data. It's just people are so full of fear, they believe anything as long as it promotes some kind of fear-based rebellion against authority. And somehow that's spiritual, and it's not. A shaman is a scientist. A shaman is somebody who wants to know the objective truth. A shaman experiments in order to find data to prove or disprove in a practical way how to solve problems. A shaman is a problem solver. When you go into a shamanic trance in order to seek out a cure, you are seeking to solve a problem. And so what I'm enjoying is that, for instance, in terms of ALS, ALS to me reminds me of fibromyalgia, which is a syndrome. It's a very common syndrome, usually women. Now, as I look at it from the outside, what I see, based on my experience with myself and my experience as a shaman, when somebody says, I have fibromyalgia, my response is, this is somebody who has deep, unresolved conflict. In my experience, every single woman who says that she has fibromyalgia also has very severe codependence. They're the type of women who get involved with alcoholics or drug addicts or narcissists or abusers. And so they're filled with understandable unconscious rage and filled with unresolved sadness. They feel hopeless. They feel trapped. And after living in that for extended periods of time, usually based on childhood issues, then at some point they start to exhibit this syndrome called fibromyalgia. Now, if you look up fibromyalgia, you will get a very strange definition. It will say fibromyalgia is an inflammation of the nerves caused by inflammation of the nerves. I mean, in other words, we don't know what the hell it is. They give it a name so that you can diagnose yourself with it or be diagnosed with it, but there's no cure. Even medicine will say there seems to be some correlation with emotional challenges, stress. So from a shamanic perspective, my experience and my belief is that all illness is a result of an internal conflict on perhaps a very deep psychological or spiritual level. And when the conflict builds, if it stays unresolved, and it builds over years or even decades, then the nature of that conflict will reveal itself in the physical tissues of the body. Fibromyalgia that's my diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And in my experience, every single woman that I have interacted with who claims to have it, they exhibit all those same things. Depressed, extremely codependent, victim mentality, hopelessness. And I'm not judging that. But once we grab onto a definition and we let it define us, then we now feel justified in whatever our illness is. So to me, it looked like ALS and fibromyalgia were very closely connected. But I didn't have enough information to back that up. Until recently, I saw this video from doctors who were talking about ALS, and they linked it to fibromyalgia. And they said that fibromyalgia, they're not saying it's caused by this or that, but they're saying one of the comorbid issues with fibromyalgia is where you have bacterial growth in the small intestine. So normally the bacteria is in the large intestine. You know, it's the dumping ground of the body. So you have these really nasty bacteria that eat up all of the food, and so that you can, get rid of it. And this bacteria, when you die, goes into your whole body. It's what chews your body up. The reason why your body, decays is because of all the bacteria in your lower intestine. And apparently, when people are sick, the immune system doesn't keep that nasty bacteria where it belongs, and so it starts migrating throughout the whole body. And so you end up with all kinds of other diseases and illnesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so if I remember what these people were saying, was that this lower intestinal bacteria ends up in the brain. And it's feeding off of the sugars of the brain, disconnecting the nerves from the brain. I'm giving you, I could be totally wrong. That's how I heard it. And what really caught my eye was that they also linked it with fibromyalgia, that it has that same. What my feeling is that ALS is just an extension. It's a further evolution of fibromyalgia. So of course my mind starts going into, from a shamanic perspective, what that means. And so we could, assuming all this information is correct, we could look at the bacteria and say, oh, what you have to do is you have to fix that bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. So you got to change your diet, etc., etc. But then the other question is, well, what causes that? What causes the bacteria to migrate into the small intestine? Obviously, there's lifestyle choices. Smoking tends to aggravate this, those of you who smoke. Drinking alcohol regularly tends to promote this. Basically anything that, you know, puts toxins into your system. Obviously drugs of all kinds. Junk food, so eating junk food, eating McDonald's on a daily basis and eating Cheetos and, you know, all that kind of stuff. This promotes the terrain so that the bacteria, you know, becomes, you know, very active. The immune system goes down, and so the bacteria can migrate out of the colon. The other thing is that most people in the modern world, your colons are in serious trouble. All of the cheese, all of the goop, all of the chemicals, all of the processed foods, it creates this lining in your lower intestine. I have a friend of mine who was he a medic or something? He was something in the special forces, and he said, no, they cut open a cadaver, and I saw, and you know, there's this. And I used to use a thing, if you're interested, I strongly recommend it. It's a thing called the Kalima board. You can go look for it online. I've used that regularly throughout my life, and the first time that I used it, without getting too graphic, there's stuff that came out of me that was just like rubber, just black rubber. And so most people's colons aren't working anyway, because the colon does absorb nutrients, but it's also the dumping ground. It's where your body takes all the toxins from all of the other organs and dumps it into the colon. And if the colon has basically a rubber coating around the top of it, then those toxins can't leave the body. They end up backing up into the organ system and in the blood and everything else. It's a reason why people smell bad. They have skin problems. They have, you know, they have yeast infections. They have bad breath. They have, you know, fungus on their toes, and this is why. So, so I'm thinking about all of this. By the way, that's just one thing, but I'm thinking about the shamanic perspective of that. You've got the basic understanding of just not keeping your body in balance, but then what about the psychological and spiritual aspect? And my thought process is these are people who can't digest life. They can't digest what is happening to them. They can't process it. This is where the depression comes in. This is where the repressed anger comes in. This is where the helplessness and the feeling trapped. And ALS is the ultimate expression of being trapped. You're a brain fully conscious, incapable of interacting. You're completely dependent on other people, and you can't do anything for yourself. You can't even communicate. And so if I follow that trajectory back to its beginning, we have somebody who is either incapable or unwilling to process the events of their life. All right, so again, I just want to, you know, I'm seeing a lot of stuff jump up here. I'm only interested in your questions. So those of you who are typing out your thoughts and I don't need a back and forth. I don't need your opinion. I don't need you to agree or disagree. I'm only looking for honest questions and honest feelings. That's what we do on this channel, just to let you know. So my thoughts about how to be a modern shaman is for us to grow up. Though most people get into shamanism, spirituality, as I did, because there's something that needs to be fixed. You're uncomfortable, you're unhappy. Some people are extremely depressed. Some people have major serious emotional, psychological issues that they're trying to resolve. You want to feel good. You want to escape your experience of mundane, sad, boring reality. You feel trapped in the matrix. You think the elites are out to get you. You think that archons are preventing you from escaping this world. You want to achieve enlightenment not because you are interested in being an enlightened person, but because you just want out of the pain. You don't want to be in pain anymore. You don't want to be bored. You've been hurt by people. Living for you is hell or boring. And so spirituality becomes a way out. And so those same people then gravitate towards manufacturing their own spirituality outside of what used to be a science. And then you have people who claim to be shamans who their main focus on shamanism is to do ayahuasca or eat mushrooms or smoke weed or, drop big chunks of DMT. And you're looking for an easy way out. You have some kind of experience and you think it's spiritual. And yet you come back and your life is worse than it was before. The haze wears off and your depression and your malaise and your poverty and your insecurity and your destructive relationships all come back and they're worse than they were before. Maybe some people, if they don't go into these practices, if they go into them without all of the baggage of psychological problems, which is, the reason why people ask me about, should I do ayahuasca? And I say, I don't know, were you born and raised in a native culture that uses that? Well, no. Then my answer is no, you shouldn't. Why? Because those people have spent their whole lives living a completely different lifestyle. They understand what this is. They understand that this is a one-off deal. You go off and you do ayahuasca once and it should be enough to change your whole life. All it does is it gives you a different perspective that frees you up to communicate with other parts of yourself so that you can realize where you need to go in life. And then you go do it. But Westerners don't look at it that way. They look at it as a religion. In fact, there's whole religions that are made up just based on ayahuasca, which means that every week they get together and they do ayahuasca. And they completely don't understand the point of it all. So we need to get back to the understanding that shamans are scientists. Scientists who objectively seek to solve problems and achieve balance. And if your need is to resolve your psychological and emotional issues, then it's helpful for you to find a practical spiritual path that will resolve it, not increase your feelings of victimhood. If it works, don't fix it. If it doesn't work, then fix it. All of the stuff here, all of the links that I have here, this is the Manifestation Mastery course, so that's really more like we're looking at it from a philosophical perspective, practical things you can do. But the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, which you hear me see me doing over here, that stuff is a science based on connecting with specific energy points in the body which release certain energies which give you the ability to become more aware of your unconscious conflict, give you the power to take action towards what your soul is telling you to do. Because there is a battle. If you want to talk about the battle of good and evil, there is a battle that you must fight. And that battle is between your soul and whatever your human programming is. And all of us have what we call karma, past life karma, which is unresolved issues from previous lives that we weren't able to resolve. It's not punishment. Karma is not a punishment. Being a human being is not a punishment. It is a choice. You've chosen to come back. Every time you come back, you've chosen to do it. And you choose to do it because you want to resolve and find balance and gain knowledge, and being a human is the best way to do that. The pressure cooker of human life is the best way for the soul to learn. And you might be in a tremendous amount of pain, and the thought of me telling you that is not something you want to hear. You want me to give you the red pill. You want me to give you a pill to fix you. And that's not how this works. If I told you something different, I could make a lot more money and I'd have a lot more followers, but I can't do that and live with myself. I have to tell you the truth. The truth is, you have to be willing to do the work. But you may need extra help. You may need a power that allows you to do that. That's what all of these things here are telling you to do. They're giving you an access to a power source that allows you to live that battle, the battle between your soul and your human programming. The karma that you brought with you will include having to make a decision between making everybody else happy or fitting in, or taking a tremendous risk and doing something that your soul wants to do. Whenever you do what your soul wants, you will have to make concessions. You will have to give up something. The idea of security. You might have to give up a job that pays you a lot of money. I've known people like that. I knew a guy who was like that. Let me tell you his story. And that's giving out his name. He doesn't watch this channel, so I'm not outing anybody. But this was a guy who I knew since college. He was a musician, and he was a talented musician. And he had another hobby having to do with radios, and he had this hobby of working with repairing certain kinds of radios, and he had his music. And then I didn't see him for a long time, and I saw him again, and he had in the meantime become a born-again Christian like me, and then left it. And he had this job that paid him a lot of money working with radios, but he wasn't doing his passion, which was music. And he said to me, and at that time that I saw him, I was broke. I was not only broke, but I was in debt. I ended up going through bankruptcy, and because I was going after this, what I'm doing, living my fantasy, which is to surf every day if I can, and to just do the kind of work I want to do, which is what I'm doing now. It wasn't a big money maker for me back then. In fact, I was, like I said, I was bleeding money. I didn't have it, but I was willing to do whatever it took. I wasn't gonna do anything I didn't want to do anymore. I wasn't gonna do any jobs I didn't want to do. I wasn't gonna work for anybody. If that ended up me living out of the back of my truck, then so be it. That's what was gonna happen. I wasn't gonna let anything stop me. So we ran into each other. He's on the other end of it. He's got this really well-paying job. That was his hobby, but he can't stand it anymore. And he's trapped in it, and he wants to be a musician, and he sees the way that I'm living, and he says, I really envy you. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? I'm struggling like hell. He says, yeah, but you don't have to get up to an alarm. You don't have to go do a job you don't want to do. He says, I'm trapped by the money. The money has me trapped. I can't leave. It's the thought of walking away from 6 figures a year. I can't do it. I said, I don't know what to tell you. And then he was in a relationship, and his girlfriend wanted him to marry her, and he wasn't really into that and all that. And so she was constantly threatening to break up with him if he didn't marry her. And I'm like, what are you doing with her? You guys don't sound like you're getting along. Anyway, long story short, he refused to follow his passion of music. And then one day, he had a brain aneurysm. Put him in the hospital and gave him a stroke. And then he ended up having to marry this woman because he had to have somebody take care of him and have a place to live. And she ruined his life. brought her drug addict kids into the house. I mean, the guy was miserable. He was stuck, trying to get over having had a stroke. And, that's what a brain aneurysm is, that the conflict in your mind, you're thinking so hard, trying to figure it out. And this is the shamanic. This isn't the medical diagnosis. This is the shamanic diagnosis. The point I'm trying to make is that you can't deny who you are. Got to be real with yourself. And so I would like to see more of what I'm seeing in the, in the scientific world. Physicists are coming to the same conclusions that Vedic rishis came to, 4,000 years ago. Doctors are coming to the same conclusion, that your internal conflict can manifest in all kinds of strange ways, like the immune system shuts down because you're on such deep internal conflict with yourself that then the bacteria goes up into your small intestine, and that creates a problem where you end up with fibromyalgia, and then you end up with ALS. And underneath all of that, what causes some of these people don't do drugs and have great lives. So then what causes this? The body is responding to the emotional and spiritual conflict where the person starts to feel as though they have no defenses, that they're trapped, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're depressed, and it becomes so chronic that then it manifests in some way. This is one. And doctors are starting to come to these same conclusions. So, that was just something some thoughts I wanted to share. And again, if you're interested in getting what this channel is about, these links are here for you. I recommend that you go check them out. All right, I'm happy to take questions. Bear in mind though, if you drop an opinion and you show what I consider to be your ignorance or your unconsciousness, I'm going to show it to you, because that's just what I do. Don Leo, do the reptilians have spirits? This was the first comment I had to block looking at it because it was bothering me. We're not talking about reptilians. And if you spend any time on my channel, you'll find me at some point talking about how that whole reptilian thing is a bunch of nonsense. Even though I have those reptilian videos, I did a parody of being a reptilian for a while. I stopped doing that. So I'm not going to answer your question because it's based in a ridiculous, nonsensical belief in reptilians. Michael E., question, is there a hierarchy among spirits, or are all considered to be equal? I don't know why you're asking me the question. I'm much more interested in what you want to accomplish. I'm not interested in giving you pat answers to superficial questions. I want to know, how does this make your life better? How does knowing if there's a hierarchy among the spirits, how does that help you live your life? The whole point of what I'm doing, all of this, is only for one thing. I'm not interested in being spiritual. I'm not interested in achieving enlightenment. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm only interested in one thing, and that is, I want to be the happiest person I can be. The happiest, most successful, most prosperous person I can be. I want to, when this life is over, I want to look back on it and I want to have no regrets. I want to go, you know what? This Disneyland that we call Earth, I rode all of the rides. I did everything I wanted to do and I have no regrets. So how does your question about hierarchy among spirits, how does that help you? You can give me something to go on that I think will be helpful for you. I will engage in that question with you. Until then, I'm not interested in some superficial talk about, let's just get into our heads about, what is out there and what isn't. Okay? I don't feel like doing that today. Caitlin Nielsen, this is why masks are a big problem. So what did I say? Please don't waste your time giving an opinion, because I'm going to come at you. What do you mean masks are a big problem? Masks, let me explain how this works. You have, if you have a virus in your system, when you cough, when you sneeze, when you speak, when you breathe, the virus comes out in the droplets of the moisture that comes out of your mouth and your nose. Can you grasp that concept? I think you can. You walk by somebody, somebody talks to you, somebody breathes, somebody coughs, those little droplets of water go out and you inhale it through your nose. And this is why when you get the cold or the flu, the first thing that happens is you get a sore throat in the back of your nasal passages in your throat, because that's where it lodges. And then it starts to replicate. And you get sick. Do you understand that concept? So if you wear a mask, you are much less likely to breathe in somebody's moisture-laden drops of breath, and you're less likely to transmit it to somebody else. That's not a problem, that's a solution. I heard somebody on my channel say that wearing a mask was the same as being raped. And how offensive is that to people who've been raped? Children, it's time to wake the fuck up. Pull up your big boy pants and your big girl pants and just deal. Stop being such childish victims, please. Your childish victimization mindset is killing people. Knock it off. Masks aren't a big problem. Masks are a solution. They're not the ultimate solution, but they are part of the solution. I'm more than happy. If I have to wear a mask, I went to the gym yesterday and did legs. And I wore a mask the whole time, and it was inconvenient, and I was happy to do it because that's what the local government is asking people to do, to stop the spread or prevent the spread of it. I'm happy to do it. It's my honor. I'm privileged to do it. Are you that weak that it's a problem for you? Grow up. Spirituality is about growing up. You want to become a shaman, whoever you are, you got to grow up. Now, Caitlin, maybe that's not what you meant, but this is what I mean. You're better off just asking me an honest question. Dropping these bombs, I'm going to react to them. If you don't want me to react, follow my rules. Jade Dragon question. Why do you think people get diagnosed or diagnose themselves with PTSD? I don't understand the question. What do you mean, why do I think people get... what do you mean? Do you know what PTSD is? It's a trauma response, post-traumatic stress disorder. It's people who have been through trauma, whether that trauma is emotional or whether they've been in war zones or whether they've been in abuse. It is a real thing. So what do you mean, why do I think people get diagnosed with it? I don't understand your confusion with the diagnosis. What don't you understand about it? I've always also wondered why people have the tendency to diagnose themselves with PTSD. Why is that a mystery to you? It means that they're saying that they feel that they've gone through trauma. I don't understand the confusion. Caitlin Nielsen, I'm going to say goodbye to you. I think you look a lot like the noble elite with elongated skull. We're just not going to play that game, you and I. If you want to learn something of value, you're welcome. If you just came on here because you're looking for reptilia, whatever, we're not going to do that. So I'm going to put you in a timeout. If you want to stay and interact with me in the future, then do me a favor, ask an honest question based on what I'm teaching, and I'll be happy to answer it. Other than that, I'm just not interested in that. Jameson-san, honest feeling. Cobra pose, which I teach you in the Warrior 90-Day Challenge. You go to thunderwizard.com, click on the subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, and I give you a version of the Cobra pose that I combine with a bunch of other things. So let me tell you what we're doing in that. You will not find this anywhere else, to my knowledge. Maybe you will, I'm not aware of it. But what we're doing is we're combining the three energies. We're combining Kundalini, which is what yoga stimulates. We're combining Qi or prana, life force energy, which is what Qigong and pranayama stimulate. And those are the two energies that most people know of. They know of chi and they know of kundalini. By the way, they're not the same. They're two different energies. There's a third energy, which is the lightning power of the heart mind, the shin. I'm the only person I know of that combines all three of those together. The result of that is, a multi-spectrum antibiotic for your spiritual woes. Allows you to tap into your heart, your soul, and to become conscious of the conflicts within you. Gives you the strength to go after what your soul wants. Go there to thunderwizard.com, check out Warrior 90-Day Challenge, or watch the videos that I talk about it here on this channel to learn more about it. So he says, Cobra Pose, I'm often coughing involuntarily. 10 plus years smoking, waiting for insurance approval. Doctor, I'm scared it's too late. All is lost. So no, that's not true. I smoked from the age of 10 to the age of 18, and then I smoked again from like 21 to 24, 25, and I smoked a lot. I smoked like at least a pack of cigarettes a day. And I remember being in my 20s and I was doing stand-up comedy. And what would happen is every day that I would get up in the shower, I would have to cough out all of that garbage. You cough out all that brown phlegm. I mean, it was disgusting. And that's because the little hairs in your esophagus and in your lungs, they die because of the smoke. The smoke kills it. So your lungs can't just naturally get rid of the mucus that forms. So it just pools up in the lungs and you have to cough it out. So that's pretty bad. So I remember being, 25 or 26 or something like that, and I was doing a stand-up comedy routine, and I had to stop and cough and clear my throat in the middle of, totally ruined the joke, and it scared me, and I said, I'm stopping, and I stopped smoking, and I haven't smoked ever since then. And the good news is that the lining heals and those little hairs, the cilia, come back, so you're okay. Just quit smoking. Now now that you're doing the work, your body is cleaning. So the fact you weren't coughing before was the bad sign. The good sign is now you're coughing. I'm sure there's an emotional connection because the heart and the lungs is where we hold our sadness. So anybody who has lung cancer, guaranteed they have unresolved anger and sadness in the lungs. The lungs is where we hold on to a lot of that. Feeling trapped and sad, depression. So it means that you're waking up, you're having your feelings, you're not feeling as sad and depressed, you're becoming more conscious, and your body now is capable of releasing the toxins that are building up. So you can go see a doctor if you want, but the fact that your body is coughing doesn't mean you're getting sick, it means you're getting well. And we'll see, maybe we'll see, but I'm going to predict that you're going to continue to get better and better, and let your body release the toxins. You're doing just fine. Probably go see a Ayurvedic doctor. I would do that. I don't know if going to a Western doctor for this is that great of an idea, because what's he going to tell you? But if you're going because you think you have lung cancer, that's not going on. Okay, you're fine. But hey, don't take my word for it. If you want to go to a doctor and get an exam, by all means. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. Vincent.thunderwizard.com. He says hello. Vincent is one of my astrology certificate. He's got a certificate in my astrology course. If you want to understand that, you can go to these two places. You can go to lockdown.thunderwizard.com, or you can go to astrology, I think this is it, certification.thunderwizard.com, and you can learn how to or try this one if that's not it. It's been so long, astrology.thunderwizard.com. You can go there as well. To see if you want to get it certified. So if you want to get a reading, and he charges less than I do, but he gives great readings. He's a very talented astrologer. You can go to his website, vincent.thunderwizard.com. Now, if you become certified by me, I will do the same thing for you I just did for him. I will say, I will give you a website. By the way, just the cost of that website is worth more than, what you pay to study. John.thunderwizard.com or Sally or whatever it is. And then if you come on and you say hello, I will plug you as well. Michael E. If you have a question, write the word. Oh, he's responding to my. I'm wanting him to give me a clarification. So his question, let's go back to it, was, is there a hierarchy among spirits, or are all considered to be equal? And I said, I don't know why that's important to you. Please tell me. And he says, I want to know if there's a hierarchy, if I can kill many birds with one stone, or if I need to handle spirits individually to handle a multifaceted problem. Thank you. Now I know what your problem is, and me answering your question isn't going to help you. If I answer, is there a spiritual hierarchy, is not helpful for you. And that's why it bothered me. I could tell that there was an emotional agenda that wasn't coming from a helpful place for you. So you're looking at it in terms of, from a place of lack. You're looking at it as a typical Westerner, that there's a bunch of spirits out there and they're arbitrary and disconnected from me and they're doing their own thing. I'm this person, I have no destiny within myself, and I have to go and, this is where, Western magic sort of falls. That doesn't really understand, the true connection between ourselves and the rest of the universe. So you're coming from a wrong vantage point. Trying to kill many birds with one stone. Do I need to handle spirits individually? You're treating them like objects, for one thing. That would be like asking me, is there a hierarchy among humans? And I would say, why do you ask that? And if you just replace spirit with humans, I want to know if there's a hierarchy among humans. If I can kill many birds with one stone, or do I need to handle humans individually to handle a multifaceted problem? People are people. Spirits are just, they don't have bodies, but they're still spirits. You don't have to worry about this hierarchy nonsense. But the real thing is what's missing in your question is the realization that I'm trying to teach you is that you have this thing inside of you called a soul. This soul is the ultimate pinnacle of the hierarchy. So the gods, Thor, Odin, Zeus, they look up to your soul. They look at you as a human being with awe and wonder. You can worship the gods, but worshiping the gods isn't lowering yourself to them. It is taking their power and having that power within you that resonates with that particular god to be stimulated and switched on so that you have that power available to you to make the most out of your life. You're not a tiny little being surrounded by all this hierarchy of spirits. That's not how this works. So you got to completely change your fundamental assumption about who you are and your relationship to the universe. That's why your question was bothering me. So I'm not going to answer that question because it's meaningless. What you need to find out is who you are and what you're here to do, and you've been given in this physical meatbag avatar, you've been given a set of tools. Now, because we live in three-dimensional limited existence, you're going to have what you experience as deficits, as weaknesses, but they're not. It's just you're here to do one thing specifically, so you have strength. So for instance, Mars is my go-to planet. Mars deities, warrior deities are my go-to planet. Now that's going to be the wrong thing for other people to do. And because I am a Vedic astrologer, I can see in my chart that Mars is saying, hey, I'm the guy that's got all the solutions to your problems. And as you can tell, that's how I interact with you. I interact with you as a warrior. My job isn't to be a nurturer like, the mother goddess or like Venus, or I'm not here just to bring karmic, difficulties to you. My job is to be the coach. I'm the guy on the athletic field telling the athlete, come on, get it together, focus. Otherwise, you're going to fall off of that balance beam and you're going to break your leg. Knock it off, pay attention, put effort, train harder. You know, I'm that coach. That's what I do with you. That warrior that comes out in me. That's my strength. And we could look at it as a weakness, but it's what I'm here to do. So you don't know who you are, Michael E. You don't know who you are. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what you're supposed to do. And so you're looking at all these spirits and do I have to deal with all of them because I don't know what the hell. So I'm going to get the whole package. Figure out who you are. I recommend getting a reading. You can get one from Vincent, and he will help you figure out which planet and which deity is trying to help you resolve multiple problems in your life. You'll learn which planet wants to help you in your daily conscious life so that you know who to talk to get yourself focused while you're conscious and awake. He'll teach you which planet wants to help you resolve your unconscious issues so you can find your true path in this life. He'll tell you which planet is trying to help you with physical things like money and job and things like that. So you don't have to be just literally in the middle of the wilderness with no map, because that's what I hear in your question. I'm in the wilderness, I have no map, there's a bunch of animals and birds flying around, and do I deal with all of them or one of them, or is there a hierarchy? You're asking, is there an information desk? Where's the information desk? It's right here in your soul. I'll do the 90-day challenge. I'm willing to bet you're not doing any of the exercises I teach, right? All of these exercises are designed to help you figure those things out. So, hopefully I've answered your question. Anti-federalist, I'm just going to block you. I mean, the level of disdain I have for you right now. Only 99% of us will survive. Masks don't work. I mean, there's no science behind what you're saying. I don't even know you by your name, anti-federalist. Here's what I know about you. You're a victim. You think everybody's out to get you. You think the government, and you'll spout whatever politician you don't like. They're out to get you. You don't understand. You created whatever government you live in, but you don't participate in that. Right? You don't vote, you don't do anything, you don't volunteer, you're not an activist. You just sit around and point at the screen and you listen to all of the negative garbage that comes at you about how they're doing it to you. And you're going to be an anti-federalist and you're going to oppose this and masks don't work. And there's no science behind what you're saying because the science doesn't coincide with your emotional attachment to rebelling against whoever it is you think is doing it to you. So the level of disrespect I have for you, the level of offense that I have that you're willing, because of your entitled state of being, to just spout whatever stimulates your emotional reaction. You're addicted to the endorphins that go through your brain every time that you get self-righteous about whatever it is you think is wrong in the world. And your willingness to not only buy into that, to not do critical thinking to find out what the information is that you're getting, whether it's true or not. You only listen to people who co-sign your emotional agendas. And because of that, I find you dangerous. I have no respect for you, and I have disdain for you. And so since you've come onto my channel and dumped that, without even trying to find out what this channel is, who I am, your entitlement to think that you can do that, that in and of itself makes me want to block you. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's all say goodbye to the anti-federalist who thinks that 99% of us will survive and that masks don't work and can't relate that to any real science. We're just going to say goodbye to him right now. Let's all say goodbye. Jameson-san, question. Regarding shamanic perspective, child PTSD, properly diagnosed chronic illnesses. Let's see, where do we go? I have psoriasis, TMJD, anxiety, codependence. Are CPTSD rooted? Will I just be sick, high risk forever? No. Jameson-san, I would like for you to go online, and I would like for you, if I haven't already talked to you about it at length, to go and research what's called TMS, tension myositis syndrome, and the evolutions of that, because that's everything that you are talking about is TMS, which means it's very simple. It means that you have unresolved emotional, psychological conflict. So doing all the things that you're doing, you're working your 12 steps, you got a sponsor, you're working with me, you're doing the 90-day challenge, you're becoming aware of your issues, and you're working to resolve them. That's the cure. So these things will, if you're successful in this, they will start to fade, and you might even have complete remission or cure of all of them. So you're not at high risk. So what you might not have heard is that the point is that for instance, here's the theory that I'm operating from. And as I say it, I know that it's a really bold thing to say. But this comes from my belief that we live in a just universe. It has proven to be true for me. But knock on wood, I'm not no different than anybody else. So hopefully this will continue to be true as I continue to get older. Because this is when these things start to manifest. As you've lived and all this stuff builds up, then that these old age illnesses are really just these manifestations of these unresolved issues. You're much younger than me, so you don't have to worry about that. You're far ahead of the curve. But what I didn't say was that in order for somebody to get to the point where they have fibromyalgia or they have ALS, it means that they've spent decades actively indulging in whatever, suppressing whatever issues they have. And the person in my life who has this, I've known them my whole life. And sure enough, I can go back, I can tell you how this person has avoided facing their own emotional issues throughout their life to such a degree that the more that they suppressed their pain, their sadness, their anger, the more sick they got. And now this person is, has a terminal illness where this person will spend the rest of their life a prison within their own body, because that's how they felt 30, 40 years ago when they actively worked. This person then went into born-again Christianity, which is another way of suppressing and guilting yourself. So what you may not have heard me say is that the cure for this is to live a real life, is to be honest and authentic. This is why I have no patience for Caitlin Nielsen, who I put in timeout, and Anti-Federalists, who I blocked. I have no tolerance for these people, because I already know, based on what they're saying, that they're just going to spout that. They're not interested in learning or changing or growing or taking responsibility for their own feelings, at least in the way that they communicate with me, so I want nothing to do with them. You're not one of those people, Jameson. You're doing the opposite. So I appreciate that you have that fear, but we know that's kind of what you were programmed to feel. And as you know, you can have any feeling you want, and you'll be fine. But I'm looking at this psoriasis, same thing, TMS. TMJ, I had that too. It's just pure tension. Anxiety, codependency, CPTSD, all of that. Those things can be reversed, but you're doing what it takes to reverse them, which is to be honest with yourself, to have all of your thoughts and feelings and impulses, no matter how challenging or difficult, and knowing what your emotional agendas are at all times, and taking action on living your truest, most fulfilling life, and having all of the feelings that come up when you do that. Because in order to live your truth, you're going to have to break the rules of whoever's programmed you. By the way, the two people that I just blocked, they are not fighting against their programming. They are succumbing to the programming of being a victim. That's what's popular now. The popular thing now is to be a victim. Whether you're somebody who's cancel culture or whether you're an idiot who stormed the Capitol, either one, they're two sides of the same coin. They're people who are indulging in being a victim, and that's what's popular. So if you want to live your true life, you're going to have to go against that programming, which doesn't mean just being a rebel for the sake of being a rebel. Jameson, you're not doing that. You're going to be just fine. Certified astrologer. Yeah, that's what I keep. For some reason, I have a hard time saying that. Jade Dragon. All right. So, what's been going on with Jade Dragon? Why is he apologizing? What did we say earlier? Why do I think people get diagnosed themselves? Okay, so he apologizes. You don't have to apologize. Listen, this is what I do. I have a short amount of time with everybody, and so I have to get to the root of the problem as quickly as possible. And this is just how I do this. This is my Aruda. If you go and get a reading, you'll find out what an Aruda is. This is my Aruda. I come at you, I'm aggressive, I throw up the mirror at you because I have a short amount of time. If you're my client, I'm much different. I spend time with you. I mean, ask Jameson. I'm patient, I'm tender, I'm loving, I'm kind. This is me doing my thing. So you don't have to apologize. It's okay. All right, let's see what else. Jade Dragon, question. In the practice of shamanism, what would you say about working with herbs? I'm very interested in adding herbal medicine into my practice just for self. Would you consider it a science? Yes. I am not an herbalist, so I can't tell you from my experience, but certainly I go to herbalists all the time for all kinds of stuff. I recommend it. And if you become one of those people, you will be doing all the rest of us a great service. So please feel free to do so. Michael E. does not appreciate my mocking attitude. I don't care. Michael, I'm not interested in you liking me. I'm interested in helping you. As I said, I'm the coach on the field. And if you don't do your job, you could get injured. So this is what, when it's the Olympics and you're about to do a floor routine and I'm going to chastise you for not planting and not having the proper body mechanics, because not only will you not get what you want, which is to win, but you might injure yourself. So I don't have time to placate you. My job is to get the point across to you as quickly as possible in the limited amount of time. And I'm okay if you don't like me. And I'm okay if you need to unsubscribe. Because I'm only interested in working with winners. I'm only interested in working with people who are willing to die to achieve their greatest satisfaction in life. And if that means you hating me to get there, I will be the first one to sacrifice you liking me or disliking me. So I appreciate the honest feeling, because that's an honest feeling. You don't appreciate my mocking attitude, but you thank me for my response. This is what you're going to get. The other thing is you learn how to interact with me in a way that gets a positive response. And here's the reason for that. I've shared this a few times, but I'll share it again. The reason why I tell people to do two things: you either ask me an honest question, which means you're asking me a question about something that you don't know that you think I know, or you share an honest feeling, which is exactly what you did. I don't appreciate your mocking attitude. What you said made me angry. It hurt my feelings, or it made me feel good, or thank you for this, or I don't, whatever your feeling is. I'm never going to judge you for your feelings, ever. It's just a feeling. It means nothing. Because what we need to learn how to do as humans is we need to take action regardless of our feelings. And unfortunately, most humans, those who stormed the Capitol, they operate from their emotions and from their impulses, and that's more important to them. Their impulses become objective reality to them. Their feelings become objective reality to them. And so they have to take action on every single impulse and every single feeling that comes to them. This is the part of the human issue. This is what happens when you go to any teacher who has any salt, and you say, I want to learn from you, and they say, okay, go stand on your head in the corner. For how long? Until I tell you to stop. Well, I don't want to do that. All right, well, there's the door. Why am I doing that? Sorry, there's the door. You came for my help. I'm going to tell you what I know because I've been there and I know what you need to do to get to learn this thing. So that's where I'm coming from. If you want that, I'm happy to help you. But you're going to have to be willing to do some things you don't want to do. You've got to be willing to hear some things you don't want to hear. And in my experience, everybody who follows my directions to the letter consistently every single one of them, their life changes and they get better. And when people stop doing that, they work with me for a while and they hit a plateau and the resistance becomes too much and they stop doing that, they always end up leaving because they know that I'm not going to co-sign their victimhood. Because if you guys knew what I've gone through in my life, if you had any idea, some of you have your own issues as well, I'm not trying to compete with anybody. But if you had any idea what I've been through in my life, there's no way anybody can come to me and tell me I'm different. Here's how my life is so bad. You don't understand. I'm like, you have no idea what I've been through. And so I know that this mindset of the spiritual warrior who's willing to die to achieve their highest evolution, that this is a path for success. It's a path for healing, for love, for health, for prosperity. Anything less than that, you're not going to get what you want. And I'm just never going to co-sign anybody's unnecessary pain, because your pain is unnecessary. Your ultimate pain. If you're miserable, if you're sick, if you're lonely, if you're in a destructive relationship, these are realities for you, but they're not necessary. And if you're willing to face yourself and do the work, you can completely turn that around. And if you end up not liking me in the process, so be it. I'm more than happy to be that for you. What else? I refuse to stop. So I refuse to stop. You've been on my channel. Thank you for following directions. Are you doing any of the things that I teach? Have you been on to any of the websites? Have you gone to courses.thunderwizard.com? Are you doing any of the Qigong? Are you doing any of the things? Or do you just come onto my channel and ask me questions? It's an honest question, I don't know. But that's the feeling I get. You say, what are your thoughts on tarot readings? Why are you asking me that? I mean, you know that I do rune readings. You know that I teach people how to do rune readings. So runes are just another form of divination. So my thoughts on tarot readings are the same thoughts I have on all other kinds of divination. It's not even a very good question because you're not asking me anything specific. I mean, what is it you want me to say? The other thing is, why are you asking me questions about things I don't teach? You're going to get bad information when you ask people about things they don't have expertise in. I don't have any expertise in tarot. So asking my opinion or my thoughts about it is you're asking me to potentially give you bad information, which again tells me you're not paying attention to what I teach. You want to ask about tarot readings? Ask somebody who does them. I don't do them. Other than that, they're a form of divination. That's all I know. I practice divination, so perhaps it's good. So Michael E., here's what's not going to happen. You and I are not going to have a tete-a-tete. I am not interested in your opinion or your unsolicited advice. I am here in my classroom giving a lecture in my course. If you want to learn something somewhere else, go right ahead and go do it. You don't like how I'm doing my class? There's the door. Don't let it hit your ass on the way out. You say, are you interested in being consistent? About maturity, right? The gods look up to my soul, but you look down on me. I never looked down on you, Mike. So here's the deal. You've got to get over your look, this is the Olympics. You want the gold medal? Then you don't have time to get your feelings hurt because I'm talking to you in a way that gets you to focus on what you need to do. If you don't respect my experience and my authority to do that, stop wasting your time, get the fuck out, and go do what you want to do. I don't have time for you to be personally offended because I'm doing what I want to do to try and help you. You don't want my help? Go somewhere else. But that's it. If you don't respond to me, and now we're getting into disrespect. And that's okay. You don't have to respect me. But if you want what I have, then you got to do what I do, and that means you got to be willing to not like, the teacher's in a mood today, he's getting on my case for this. But if you don't like it, it means that you're not, either you don't want what I'm offering you, or you don't think that I have the tools to give it. In which case, you're wasting your time by being here. So get the hell out. But this happens again, I just won't respond to you anymore, because I'm not interested in wasting my time or other people's time, because they are here because they do want to hear what I have to say. You don't? I wish you all the best. I'm not the only game in town. I hope you find what you're looking for. So we're going to get rid of this because it's not helpful. All right. Let's see. Michael E., you're going to put up with whatever I decide to give to you, or you're going to leave. This isn't a battle. Who do you think you are? You're coming onto my YouTube channel. I didn't come into your house. I didn't knock on your door and say, hey, Mike, can I come into your living room and then can I be this bombastic, self-centered, opinionated teacher? I didn't do that. You came onto my channel. You're interacting with me. You think that I'm mocking you and you won't put up with it? Then get the fuck out. There's the door. Otherwise, sit down, shut up and listen, and don't distract other people who are trying to learn. You want to communicate with me? I've given you 2 ways, and from here on out, these are the only 2 ways I want you to communicate. You're going to ask an honest question, which means that you don't have any kind of disrespect or sarcasm in your voice, or you're going to share an honest feeling. An honest feeling says, I feel this, I feel that. You're not going to try and interact with me or change the way that I deal with you, or I will block you. Because I just don't have time, and neither do you. What else? All right, Michael E. says, I want what you have, but you aren't living what you have. So then you don't belong on my channel, so you're blocked. Bye. See ya. What else? Jameson song. Honest feeling. Thank you. In addition to, in August, starting a therapy healing course for childhood PTSD with trained and specialized psychologists, sharing to be encouraged, not doubt as it is in spirit lineage. I don't understand that. Anyway, it sounds great. I don't have any problems with any of it. Congratulations, keep it up. That's not an honest feeling, by the way. You're giving me an update on what you're doing. So, but it sounds great to me. All right, I don't see any more questions here. We've gotten rid of the trolls. We had two or three trolls. So do you guys understand why I'm so harsh with Michael? It has nothing personal. I have nothing against him. I understand it. I don't like people talking down to me or talking ways that I don't like. But I just learned that if I've learned as a student that if I want what somebody has, and I've had, my teachers had their serious problems. But I always asked myself, does this person have something that I want? Knowledge of some kind. And if they do, and if the answer is yes, then I deal with it, and I'm a good student. And I show up and I say, yes, Sifu, no Sifu, and I follow directions, because that's what you do to learn. And for me to have done anything else would have gotten in the way of my ability to learn what I learned. And when I got to the place where they no longer had anything to offer me, and there wasn't anything I could learn, then I would leave. But it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time to try and argue with, the other thing is, again, what I'm trying to give you in terms of how you interact with me is how you need to interact with the ascended masters, the gods, the universe. The universe is not interested in negotiating with you. The universe is not interested in trying to placate your insecurities or your hurt feelings or your sensitivities. And what happens is if you don't understand how to ask the universe the right questions, if you don't understand how to interact cooperatively with the universe just it just shuts down. The communication stops. It's not because they don't want to teach you. It's just you're not willing to be taught. You have your own experience, your own narcissism, your own feelings, your own whatever. And the universe just says, I can't do anything with it. I can't help you. And so people's experience is that the universe is this empty, cold place. So everybody listening to me who believes that you need to escape the matrix, that there are archons keeping you from they're doing it, the elites are doing it, they're forcing you to wear a mask, if that is such a huge problem to you that you can't live your life and you feel so trapped, then you're not going to have the ability to communicate to the universe in a way that stimulates the ancestors, the gods, the universe, to give you knowledge and information. You're going to feel like you're trapped in a matrix and that God doesn't love you and that nothing works for you, etc., 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 etc. And then you'll storm the Capitol out of frustration. I'm telling you, the guides will continue to download as much information as you are capable of taking in. There are ways to learn spiritual powers and practices that are beyond our wildest dreams if we are willing to listen. But if we don't have a mature interaction with them, they can't help us. I can't help Michael E. You want to know why? Michael E. has some unresolved issues with parents or authority where he gets easily offended. He could watch the way I interact with Jameson. I'm very, Jameson and I have a relationship and you can see the difference. I work with him, I listen to him. There's a whole different vibe. So he doesn't see that. He's not looking at going, he's interacting with that guy that way. What is that guy doing that I'm not? He's not looking at himself, which means I can't help him. He wants to play out some unresolved childhood drama with his parents, some authority thing. And the moment that he feels that I'm mocking him, even though I might have like $1 million in my hand, I'm about to hand it to him. But if I don't do it the way that he wants, he has to stand up for himself. Don't get me wrong, I don't put up with abuse either, but I'm not abusing him. If he doesn't like it, then I can't help him. Nothing I can do for him. Now, I'm not the only game in town. Other people do different things, but I'm telling you, that's how the universe works. When there are spirit beings out there that I've worked with that if I don't come to them with the right frequency of mind, they just simply turn around and walk away. If you go I'm giving you more of a Germanic, fiery response, which is an act of love, by the way. When somebody says, hey, I don't like what you're doing, you're pissing me off, it's an act of love. But if you deal with a traditional Chinese teacher, for example, if you walk in and the Sifu is there in front of you, if you don't interact with him according to protocol, he, in mid-sentence, will just simply turn around and walk away from you. And you won't know what the hell you did wrong. And the universe is like that. So I'm doing my best to teach you in my interactions with you how to work with the universe. So you're going to have to be willing to get your feelings hurt by the universe, to be disappointed. You're going to have to be willing to look at your sensitivities and your insecurities and your immaturity, your feelings of entitlement. You're going to have to deal with all of that. And if that's too much for Michael, that if he were to go back, if he can go back and watch this, if he can go back and listen to what I'm saying and get the information from that instead of just being offended by the way I'm saying it, then he can learn. But if he's not willing to do that, then I can't teach him. And it's not about me. It's about you guys being able to get what you want from the universe. Dark question. Do you have any tips for a new yoga instructor or guru to get business in a majority Christian region? The first one is forget that you're in a Christian region. So what? That doesn't mean anything. Don't let that get into your head to screw with you. You welcome to my channel. I assume that you're new. I recommend going and reading my book, The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, or you can watch the videos of that. Let's see, sorry. Yeah. Go watch those videos or read that book, because what is most important isn't other people. The people around you is meaningless. What's important is that you're doing what your soul is telling you to do. If you do that, it won't matter if you're in a Christian, Muslim, New Age, none of it will matter. Because if you are doing what your soul wants, the universe must. The universe must give you what you need. Must give you the money and the resources. And then the other question is, maybe that's not where you belong. Maybe you belong somewhere else. If it's so bad that you can't get any students because you live in a Christian majority, then go somewhere else. But you don't even have to do that, because then there's this online stuff. I mean, all of my students are all online. So I'd recommend going to vincent.thunderwizard.com and getting a reading and finding out what your Aruda is. Maybe you're supposed to be an online yoga teacher. Point is, don't worry about those kinds of limitations. Just go teach, and you'll figure out what you need to do in order to be successful after that. Jameson-san, honest feeling. Worried that since it's psychology focused. All right, so Jameson, you know the drill. Your main issue is that you just overthink everything, right? So sometimes you just got to take what I say and stop trying to analyze it. I'm more interested in your actions than in that. But you being worried about not getting things perfect is your thing. So you're going to have that same feeling about anything. It won't matter what I'm talking about. You're going to have that same experience. Say worried that since it's psychology focused, compartmentalizing spirit side of things will make me want to back out. Yeah, so you're just worried. You're just having self-doubt. That's all you're saying. It doesn't matter. Trying to, your need to get so specific about what your doubt is about, is part of the issue. You think that's going to give you some knowledge to help you, and it won't. It's not going to help you. You're just worried. That's it. It's okay. Just love yourself in being worried and having doubt. Nothing wrong with that. I have doubt about every single thing that I've done, every single teaching that I've done, every single package that I've delivered. I've had doubt, sometimes crippling doubt. There have been times like when there's been a few different things that I've started before releasing it, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was so full of self-judgment and self-criticism and literally wanting to blow my brains out. But they're just feelings. And I accept myself with my feelings, and I know what I'm supposed to do because I know what my soul wants. Even if I think it's impossible, even if I think everybody's going to hate me or judge me, or even though all those feelings come up, I still do it anyway. In fact, sometimes I know I really have to do something when I get an idea and I get really scared. Oh my God, everybody's going to hate me if I do this. Then I know, that's the one I'm supposed to do. So stop trying to talk yourself out of your doubt. Maybe your doubt's a good thing. It means that you're going in the right direction. Okay? I don't see any other questions here. All right, so courses.thunderwizard.com if you want to see all my books, all of my other services. Thunderwizard.com is the website that keeps me afloat, keeps me doing these videos. Right now, what we're doing is, of course, the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong is the Maoshan tradition, which is associated with the Maoshan 5-element stuff. They're two interconnected but separate things. People ask, if I do the Warrior 90 Day, will I get the Mao Shan 5 Elements? No. 5 Elements is something that is only for those who want to do the elite, super powerful spiritual practice, but you need to do that with the Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong. But if you don't want to do the 5 element stuff, that's fine. Subscribe to the Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong to learn this warrior, sorcerer, spiritual practice, and I'm going to be teaching you everything that I know and things that are coming to me, new things. And only those people who are doing it know what I'm talking about. And then, of course, we have the Manifestation Mastery course, which we have opened up a new series, which I'm calling the Omnipotence series. And if you are a 90-day subscriber, you will have access to that. But if you just want to get the Manifestation Mastery course, you can do that. That's just one. You can go to thunderwizard.com and you'll see it all. But check those things out. We've got a bunch of new things coming in both of those subscriptions. And yeah, all right. So I've done my business. I've talked long enough. I don't see any more questions. So we'll leave it there. One of the lessons today is don't put up with any bullshit from anybody. Don't negotiate with emotional terrorists. You don't have to make everybody happy. It's okay if some people aren't okay with you. Then they don't have to be in your life. One of the things that, like when people come to me for romantic relationship advice, and somebody will say, my boyfriend this, my husband that, and he does this, and they'll tell me how their boyfriend or their husband is not meeting their needs or abusing them or whatever. And they'll say, what should I do? And my first question will be, are you able to accept your husband exactly as he is without changing him? And they'll usually say, yes, if he does, and I'll say, right now, exactly as he is, are you willing to accept him exactly this way? And if the answer is no, then I say, there's nothing I can do for you. You have to break up with him because he's not going to change. Or you can't expect him to change. And if they say, yes, but I'm having a really hard time with it, and I go, well, then good, I can help you. We can find ways to help you accept him for who he is, and perhaps give you some tips to maybe help him be more cooperative with you. But you have to be willing to accept people, everybody, your teachers, yourself, the universe. You have to accept everything exactly as it is. If you can't do that, you're already at an impasse. You can't get beyond that. Same thing with teachers. Michael E. wasn't willing to accept me for who I am. He wanted to change me. He's not going to do that. Number one, I know what I'm doing. But even if I didn't, it wouldn't matter. So this is a lesson for everything in life. You have to accept everything exactly as it is in order to learn how to then figure out a way to be cooperative with it and make it work. And if you can't accept things for what they are, then you got to get rid of them. Your job, your spouse, where you live, something. You got to be willing to do the work if you can't accept it the way that it is. All right. Nothing else. That's it for me. I wish you guys all the best. Stay safe. And I will see you when I see you.